Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Alright, today, talking about custom string gauges. What are they? How do you do it? How do you get them? Are they expensive? The answer to all these is no. No, it's pretty easy to do. I figured it out, and I'm no math wizard, so you can too. So how do you do it? Well, first you go online to a string tension calculator. You can find one on the Stringjoy website, and there's another one or two out there. They are pretty simple things. It tells you the tension. I'll pull up here some examples. Gives you the tension of the strings at a given pitch and a certain gauge. This is the one from the Stringjoy website. In this case, I'm on a 25-inch scale guitar. So you can put in your scale length and your pitches. This is just standard tuning. This is a set of 10s, and this is the Ernie Ball regular slinky gauges. What does it tell you? Well, it gives you a general sense of the tension of some known strings that you like. So whatever strings you like to play in whatever tuning, you can put in the gauges and figure out about how many pounds of tension you like on your guitar. And then you can look at where you could make some improvements. In this case, we can see the B string is a little bit light. That could probably go up. And the low E is also a little light, but that is normal. So the general rule, at least from the people at Stringjoy who made a video on this, they said to keep the wound strings about 2 to 4 pounds higher in tension than the plain strings, and the lowest string should be a little lighter than the rest. Now, I'm not playing in standard here, which is part of the reason I'm doing this. This guitar is in drop C. It's also a slightly unusual scale length. It's kind of in between a Fender and a Gibson scale. But I know generally what strings I like on it. I have tried a number of string sets in drop C, and there's some that are pretty good, but I haven't found one that I'm totally happy with, so I figured I'd give this a shot. So for me, generally I like 10s in standard at this point. So for drop C, you can see I'm keeping my gauges pretty similar in tension, about 17 to 19 pounds. This is a little heavier, but that's okay. And you can also see I've used generally sets of 12, maybe a 12 heavy bottom set. I did want to lighten things up a little bit, so I lightened the top strings by just maybe a half a gauge or a gauge each over what is usually out there on these sets. I kept the 60 bottom, which I generally like, and I lightened everything else up a good amount. If you compare these numbers, you can see here I've got a 60 bottom up to a 40, 30, 19 plain, 15, and an 11.5 on top. That's a little lighter than most of the sets out there for drop C, or a regular set of 12s for standard, for maybe C standard or heavy D standard. So I've kept things a little lighter. I'm trying to work towards playing slightly lighter strings. But I like the bottom string to be nice and tense. I don't want it to be floppy. So I went with a 60 here. The only thing I can say I want to improve on this set after playing it for a few hours is what would be the A string, the 5th string here. I went a little light on that with a 40, and I think next time I would go with maybe a 42, maybe even a 44, but it's close. I noticed it's got a little less volume than the low C, which I'm okay with too. I don't really want to stick out over the bottom note, especially for low power chords and stuff. But I think I would go with a slightly heavier one for that. But otherwise, you can see it's pretty balanced, and that's what you want. My high string is a little higher tension than the other two, and again, that's okay. And the low strings are all pretty close to each other. In this case, I got these strings because they were the cheapest I could find. These are from stringsbymail.com, and they are GHS boomers, all of them. And it cost a little over $7 for the whole set, So it's not much more than you would pay from most other manufacturers for a complete set of strings. So I really like it. It is a little lighter than usual on top compared to a lot of sets, which I like. It's a little easier to play, a little easier to bend, and I don't need those strings to be super heavy, but I'm still happy with the low string being nice and tight. So just to let you hear it a little. Comment below what that riff was. So as you can see, they work. They work fine. As I said, the low C is a little louder than the G. Cool. So these work great. If you like drop C, you can check these out. I would just go with the 42 on the bottom, probably, maybe a 44. Where this is really useful is if you play in any sort of custom tuning, something maybe you came up with, or just an unusual tuning that there aren't readily available strings for. This would be great. I usually play in either a drop tuning or standard, so it's not a huge deal, but it does make a nice difference. And just addressing some of my complaints with some string sets, that certain strings were too heavy or too light, or it was overall a little too heavy, too light, bottom was too heavy or too light. Whatever your issues are, you can address it. Just keep in mind, you want to keep your tension similar, and you want to keep your wound strings a little heavier, and your bottom string a little bit lighter than the other wound strings. And you should be good. And then I would just, again, cross-reference a set of strings you know you do like, and find out what kind of tension you like to play with, whether it's heavier or lighter, and then just try to go from there in any tuning you want. And if you have a new guitar with a new scale length, or you want to try a new tuning, you can easily just dial in the right strings. You might find when you run the numbers that there are string sets out there that are pretty close to what you want, and you could just go buy those. But either way, these cost only $1 or $2 more per set than other strings to get them, to get custom strings. Now, I've got my 7-string with a different scale length that I set up for drop A. So let's check that out. Okay, so here I am with my lovely 7-string to bring the real beef. Now, I've tried a few different tunings on this. I've gone down to F, I've done G, and I decided I was going to try drop A. So standard tuning for a 7-string with the drop A. 7 strings are a little harder, or baritone guitar, because they do come in more scale lengths. This one in particular, this is a Schecter, and it is 26.5. So you have to factor that in to your string gauges. And a lot of the sets out there may not be optimal for your guitar. They might not. There's actually a little higher tension than the last set. And you can see on their website, they didn't have a 66 gauge. So I crossed that out and I just averaged out the 2 closest ones to find the tension for that. I didn't want to go up to a whole 68 gauge for the low A. I thought that was a little overkill. So this is almost the same as, again, the Ernie Ball, the regular Slinkies. I've got a 13.5 instead of a 13. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. Well, the E is a little heavier. What do we have here? 66 on the low A, 48 on the E, 36 on the A, 26 on the D, 17 on the G, 13.5 on B, and 10 on the E. I'm also happy with these strings. I have no complaints with this set. And even though you can see the poundage between the E and the A is a little different, they really don't feel all that different to me. The A is so much thicker that even though it's a lighter tension, it still feels balanced with the set. So I quite like this set. I'm happy with it. Here you can hear it in action. I should say too, on both these demos, you can see it open in Reaper. I'm using this free amp sim from ML Sound Lab, Amped Roots, that they released for free. It's a cool amp sim, also worth checking out. There's some free riffs for you, made up on the spot. If you don't like them, take it up with my riffs department. They're underpaid and overworked, and they don't have time to just sit around writing things. So, what did we learn? What should you do? You should go check out string tension calculators. You should figure out what you like and how you can maybe improve it, or how you can make a custom tuning set. I've been using custom gauges on my bass for years. This is the first time I've actually bothered to do it with guitars, because there's just so many string sets out there. But with bass, especially since I play in a custom tuning on bass, which isn't all that crazy. It's just drop C up from a 5 string. But there's no real strings out there that are perfect for it. So I've been playing custom strings on my main bass for years, and I love them. They're a little lighter than what's out there for the most part, but they're also balanced for drop C. This was a worthwhile investment, and I'm really happy with this set for drop A. Might tweak the set for drop C a little, but both of them are some of the most comfortable string sets I've played. Now, I haven't tried every set out there. Maybe there's something on the market that I would like, but I'm very happy with these. Nothing is too light, nothing is too heavy. They feel just right, they sound good, and they're pretty cheap. The 7-string set was a little over, it's about $9.50 because it's got this fat 66. And that's the only one that's a D'Addario string, actually. The rest are all GHS. But you can buy any brand you want, pretty much. And again, stringsbymail.com. That's where I got this. Not a sponsor, but they're cool. And there's some other websites I was looking at too that do custom strings. You just order individual strings and make your own set. Stringjoy also does that. And Kalium strings, I've used both of those on my bass. They're all good. A little more expensive, but if you know what strings you like, you've done some experimenting, and you want to get some premium strings, go for it. So that's all I have for you today. I hope this has been educational, and see you later.